So I had a couple of seconds to think about it, and it looks like I want to make this a little bit more robust in the sense that if the row itself has 4 columns but it's empty, I would like to kind of treat it as an invalid transaction and just uh, uh, ignore it essentially. So for example, if it's a chargeback and it has the user but it doesn't have the transaction ID, it's technically invalid. So we're just going to kind of drop it from our transactions to process. So if I was to run this, I mean I just ran this a couple of seconds ago, you can see that it's failing on the unwrap because I'm actually unwrapping all of the rows and I'm expecting every row to exist and every like for uh, the row to be valid and pre-parsed and kind of in a very very friendly CSV file. So that's not always going to be the case. So we want to kind of um, ignore malform. Theoretically, we don't want to ignore malformed CSV files. We want to log it somehow, but I don't think I can log it in this particular example because we need the std out to be a valid CSV file. We don't want to kind of muck it up with all sorts of error logs and traces and that sort of stuff. So in production, you'll definitely have some logs, but right now we don't have it. We're just going to skip it and hope for the best. So what we can do is create like an optional transaction. It's basically the same thing as a transaction, but actually I suppose I could do another thing. I could now it's creating a transaction over here. So there's 2 ways to kind of go about it. I could create a completely new struct where it contains all the parameters, all the properties of the transaction, except every single property is made into option, and then we can see whether the record itself is valid. The other thing we can do is we can try to have a try catch, which may just be the easier way to go about it. So let's just see if we can do a try catch instead. Okay, so it looks like Rust has no try catch. So what we'll need to do is we need to let's accept the cookies. Alright, so I think rather than using from, well, can I use from? Return self. Can I do that? Let's get rid of this. Might as well look at, might as well browse the internet together. Yeah, let's import this crate. take a look at it on crates.io to see how many folks have used it. It doesn't seem to be all that popular. Maybe I'll avoid using this one. How do you create a result? Okay, that's really what we're looking for. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so we could do something like this. We can say match that with OK, and then the value is transaction. And if we have a transaction, then we check for it to be valid and then process it. Otherwise, we don't really do anything. We just want to ignore it. Ignore the invalid transaction. So I would argue that even this is no longer necessary, because we could take a look over here and rather than using from, now I'm going to get rid of this one too. Let's get rid of this. We don't really want to do it this way. Okay. So I don't think I want to use from. Instead, I want to create a new function called parse. All right, and from I parse the string record into a transaction, but we are returning a result which can contain a transaction or an error. Okay, so let's return this. Okay, the error can be any type of error. Okay, I think we want to use the standard error. Okay. Right. We probably don't care about that. Is this the better error? Okay, that's weird, but it's happy now suddenly. I'm not exactly sure I'm happy with that though. So what is the error? Import error. We want that to be this one maybe? guess we'll find out. It's actually parse int error technically that happens. So do I have? Yeah, it exists, but I want it to be a generic error. Well, we'll find out. So string record. Right. Expected parse. I'll parse the record. Right, so let's go in here, make that public, so we can parse it, and if the transaction exists, it's going to be valid, and then we'll run the transaction. Let's see if that works. I don't think it will. Yeah, so it's a parse int error. So yeah, I'm curious. What do you match? Do we even want to specify this? Yep, let's go to that page. Okay, maybe it's a string. Alright, so let's just see if right, it's not able to. Okay, so what we will do is we will try to say transactions equal to 5. It's okay for this transaction. I'm going to try to unwrap using the expect method so that we can try to unable to parse int error. It's empty type. Yeah, okay. Why don't I just panic at the very beginning? I'm just curious what will happen. So let's run it. It's panicking. Yeah, okay. Getting a cough. Okay, so I'm thinking what we can do is try to get ourselves a transaction, and what we can do is yeah, so let's do this. Let client equals this one match that, and with the match arms we can, if it's okay with the value, which is ID, we'll just simply return the ID. Otherwise we are returning want to return error, unable parse client. Okay, and then let's try it this way. Is this return, the curiosity is it returning out of here or not? So we'll see. And then the client is just that. And then what we can do is we can go into our transactions, we can mock up our row of data, run it. Okay, so it looks like it didn't actually fail it, so that's a good thing. That's a good sign. And then what we can do is we can do the same thing for the rest of these things, which is transaction types. Let transaction type equals there. Now the question is, if it panics, then that's not something we're interested in, right? So we can do result is of this type, then we can send this over, match. So all of these types are okay, except for this one, which is error. Okay. So I guess I may even have to remove the transaction type here completely. So I can implement great. Call it parse, and yeah, parse. I got a bunch of tests that have failed now. Man, I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll think about this for a second. What if transaction is valid, right? I think we should definitely tackle this. I'm gonna go ahead and try to tackle the rest. unable to parse transaction, and then convert it to a string. That's fine. And then we could do the same thing with the, oh, that's fine. Amount can be null, so that's okay. And we are only checking for the record length to be 4 before we can try to parse that fourth element, so that's okay. Otherwise, it's always going to be null, so I don't think we need to modify anything here. If anything, we really have to take a look at this transaction type. So what I might do is just swap it over to parse. Right. Parse, and that's going to return a transaction type. Well, that's not returning a transaction, it's returning a result, which could be a transaction type or a string. So, okay. And the last one is into, cast it into string. Okay, so this is going to fail a few of my tests, and I think that's okay. Parse this. What's going on here? Right, result dot. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. And then parse this record. Okay, and then what we can do is we can match this. If it's okay transaction type, then we can return it. Otherwise, so what's happening here is we're just making it a little bit more robust in the sense that if some jargon is passed in, we just ignore it. We shouldn't ignore it, we should log it somewhere, but we're not going to log it right now. So we want to make sure our tests are still passing. It looks like we're failing one of the tests, which is should panic if invalid transaction type. It's this one over here. So it's no longer going to panic because we're past that stage. So transaction type, what we're expecting to see is assert transaction type dot is error to be true. So and we should also rename it should return error if invalid transaction type, and then run the test again. Okay, so we're good again on our test. So we can also run it for all the transactions. 13. 13th person has, oh right, I had a chargeback on this. Suppose. Deposit. 12 pays. What if I remove all the other transactions just for the sake of it, and we want to take a look at what's happening with this person? Why is 150 being held? Because you're disputing, oh that's right, because you're disputing this and you have no withdrawal because it's actually sent to a unique incorrect. It's tied to a transaction that doesn't actually exist. Okay, so that's fine. And you also can't charge back against the account that's not yours. So I'm gonna go ahead and update it with a few more tests here. Testing for scenarios where chargebacks is a withdrawal referencing a different account, client ID. Okay, then we can get these as well. And we're expecting to see the output. All right. So I think that will help make things a lot more robust. So I have a chargeback, and I have like unknown. That should still run successfully. I'll have an unknown with nothing else. And oh, interesting. Okay. Looks like it's not able to unwrap. Unwrap on a none value. $75. Okay, so let's see if I get rid of this. Will this still work? Will the code still work? Guess not. From string. Okay. Well, we were doing an unwrap, and I think it makes sense for it to be unwrapped. Can I set this to? So I guess we can do this. We can okay, so you know what we can do? We can try to see if the records, the length is at least 2. It's kind of annoying, but it will work. So length, if it's shoot, a length greater than 2 or equal to 2. No, that's not even the right way to do it. Let's just do this. If the length of the record, is less than 3, return unable to parse row, and I think that should help with this type of a problematic row. I can also test with something that's just not a string, right? Hopefully that, well, I don't want to make it unknown, so I want to make it a deposit, so it'll actually get into the parsing of the next record. Next column. Okay, so it's able to try to do that. So it's just ignoring it. Now, can I do the same thing with this? And then last test is, can I do the same thing with this? So I want to make sure that, let me just build again. Okay, so it's parsing that CSV, it's ignoring the chargeback, it's ignoring this unknown. Actually, I'm going to just do the following. Well, not print line, ignoring record. Just curious to see how many records are being ignored. What's the problem here? Right. All right. Okay. So we are ignoring the chargeback. We're ignoring this. We're ignoring this. We're ignoring all the problematic ones. That seems to be. That's kind of what I'm expecting to see. So, and we don't need the clone here anymore. Yeah, okay. I think that's kind of what we're expecting to see here. We want to be able to be a little bit more what do you call it? Tolerant of the error. Well, we want to be more tolerant when it comes to the type of records that exist in the CSV. So I'm just going to put that in the readme as well. Jargon. now the data. Expect invalid rows to be ignored. Okay. I believe I have another one here, which is another row over here, which is how many columns is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 columns. Let's go ahead and add that to the README as well. Rows greater, well, columns greater than 1 for our report. But this CSV will try to parse. I can't explain that. How do I type it out? Should parse a transaction, but ignore the rest of the columns. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Okay, so double checking and squashing some bugs in the CSV transaction. CSV parsing, not transaction. Okay. How do you spell that word, erroneous? Erroneous. I should copy, please. Okay. Just to make sure everything in CSV does not stop the processor. Okay. Alright, so I think that's kind of a decent spot to wrap things up. Cool. Thank you.